Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday we're going to make a start on clearing the site for the new mini patio. See you in a minute. Now, as you can see, the chaos in here is reached its normal heights, but I can't hardly even move in here at the moment in the shed itself, so I thought we'd go outside. The weather is cold today, but it's due to be getting warmer, and one of the things that's been hampering work on this job outside is the frost and snow. So I want to try and just get a big bush that we've got to move. There's a hydrangea bush that needs a bit of pruning because it's coming into bud already, and that needs to be just knocked back a bit to get the size to the right size for where it's going. We've now sorted where it's got to go. So I want to get that dug up, get all the smaller plants that are around it that are worth keeping, get those into pots or put somewhere else, and perhaps make a start on finding out what we've got there and how much mud and soil's got to come out. So we go outside and make a start. Now this is another of those videos that seems to span over a long time. When I did the first video on the patio, the sort of design layout and that, we'd had some reasonably nice weather relatively early on in the year, but then the weather turned, and this was actually done or started in March, when the weather was just starting to turn a little bit better. Still cold, as you can see, but things were starting to burst into life, so I had to get the plants moved relatively early on, because otherwise they'd probably have suffered in the move. There's a big hydrangea that I've got to move in the middle of the bed. There were some smaller plants as well, but the hydrangea was the biggest one that had got been established there for about 5 or 6 years, so fair bit of tugging and pulling. Whether it would survive or not would be, at that stage, a bit of a guess. As it turns out, I'm looking out now at the window and it's in flower. We're into July, and it seems to have taken well to where it's going, which is just next to the greenhouse. And of course the problem is there's already something in the way. There was a grass in the way, so I had to dig that out to find room to put the hydrangea in, and then that spins off into having to find somewhere to put the grass as well. But at that stage the garden was looking pretty bleak, because it was so early in the year. But we needed to get that in, settled and watered in well before we started. So having got the area clear, I've got to then start getting the soil out, and I made a relatively tentative start at that time. Biggest problem was going to be getting rid of the soil, because although it's only a small area, there is an awful lot when you start digging it into trugs. Right, that's got the plant moved to its new home, and we've made a start on digging out. I can at least see where it's what I need to do and what needs moving and digging out. I found somewhere to lose some of the soil, which is good. Means I won't have to take it up the tip. So the only real downside is discovering how badly the inside of the shed has suffered from rain coming in from the gutter. So there's another job there, I think. So just as you get one starting to get done, you find another. So fast forward now to May. This garden had stood because the weather was reasonably bad. We had a lot of rain, and although I'd made a start on digging the base out, I was concerned that every time it rains you lose a bit more of the bottom of the excavation. It gets wet into it and it breaks up, and it needs clearing out and drying out. So I'd waited until May, until we started to get some decent weather, and I could get the rest of the excavation done and tidy it all up, get it level. The whole of this new patio has got to be level with the large circle on the right there, that it needs to sort of be an extension off that, and that meant I'd got to come down quite deep. But the morning's work soon sorted that out, and then it was time to put the curve in on the far end. I just got a profile of a bit of wood, pinned it at both ends, and then bent it roughly to the shape I wanted. That gave me a line to cut to with the spade that would give me a cleaned up area. That's got to have vertical small slabs put in it to retain the bed outside the not the greenhouse, my shed. And you can see there's starting to get a bit of growth going up the front of the shed. They cut it all down last year, but it's starting to grow back now and look a little bit less wild than it was before. I've already got some sand and ballast that I think appeared in one of the, when I did the video on what I was doing during one particular week. So the sand was in place. Having bought the mixed sand and gravel as like a ballast, I decided that it was probably better, if I could, to get some MOT1, which is a type of limestone that's got a mixture of fairly large pieces and fine stuff as well, that is much more suitable to putting a base in underneath any soil, underneath any slabs I mean. And once I'd got this bottoming out done on this excavation, it was fairly important for me to get that in quickly, because again I didn't want to be chasing it down and down and down every time it rained. So we had another few trugs full of soil and trips up the tip. Probably would have been cheaper to have got a skip in, but the problem is it was over a long period of time. Right, that's got all that finished and cleaned out ready, so I'm just going to start and put some stone in. That'll give me a rough idea of how much more of that I'm going to need. I suspect another 5 or 10 bags at least, but we'll see. Get those split out and into the hole first, start and bash it down, and hopefully get a stable bottom for next time it rains. So out with the garden rake to get this stuff levelled out, and time to get on and get the bags open and into the hole. As usual with this sort of thing, it takes an awful lot more than you think it will. I think it's about 2 tons per cubic metre of stone, and there's, I don't know, 3-4 square metres by a couple of 100 mil deep, 100 mil deep perhaps, which is 400 maybe, what's that, about, yeah, probably about 500 or 600 kilos of stuff, half a ton overall, that we were going to need in there. And these are bags now of about, what, 20 kilograms, so there's a fair amount got to go in. But we started off with this MOT and got that levelled out first. That needed a couple of trips down to the builders merchants to get the bags. I think there were 12 or 15 bags went in of that, so that's getting on for 300 kilograms. And then there's the stone to go in, or the ballast to go in later, that I'd put in as a concrete bed. Ideally with this sort of thing it wants to go down with a vibrating plate, whacker plate to get it compacted, but it's not really worth hiring one in just for a small area like that. And again, it's the sort of thing that nowadays is getting, these things get heavier as you get older, so I decided to cheat and do it with blocks of wood and stamping it down effectively over time. Plenty of time to let it settle before we got into the slab laying. First job we're going to have to do when we've got that in is to put some sort of a concrete foundation in along that left hand side to take the base for the supporting stones that are going to go in as like a mini retaining wall. So that'll probably be the first job when we get into the slab laying, but in the meantime it was out with a bit of 4x4 and a sledgehammer to just batter it down. Right, that's got the base in. Next thing is to put the foundation for the wall across there and probably across the back, and we can get start and get some support to that soil. Now you can see the logic of using the MOT1. It hasn't rained on this bit because the plank was over it and it's all still loose, but where it's rained on it, it's gone much harder and it's become almost like concrete. It locks all the bits together, so it's better than just having the loose ballast that I was going to put in. I'll mix that with some cement and get a rough concrete bed underneath the paving. But this has gone, let's say, almost like a concrete bed itself now, just with a couple of heavy rain showers on it. So with the base in, I went out and bought a slab at the time. I've since ordered and had delivered the remaining 15 or 16 or so, and some of the small pieces that I'm going to use as uprights to retain the wall and trim the back edge. But I needed to get level established before I put the ballast in underneath it, and there was a bit of work to do around the step out from the conservatory because the levels were showing that the foundations there were slightly too high. So it was out with the SDS drill to jackhammer some of that concrete out. And I've then gone and started to put a relatively dry mix. Well, it was a dry mix, but it's about 6:1, I think, of ballast and cement. No water added, just put in very much the same as the MOT1 underneath it. But by that time I'd had a chance to put levels marked so that it left me about an inch or so of bed to put mortar underneath the slab, but it gave me a good solid surface to lay the slabs on. And again, a little bit of tamping down. It doesn't need quite the compaction that the MOT1 did, because it effectively would go off like, well, concrete that it is. So that's given me a good solid base now that I can start and lay slabs on. Right, so that's got me the patio base all done now. We've done, I hope, most of the hard work on it, in that getting the soil dug out, getting all the base in and the concrete mixed has been the biggest job. I'm just going to go and double check on how many slabs I need and how many edgings I need around the sides. Go and order those, get that sorted, and hopefully next video we can get the whole thing finished. Hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different. I'll see you then. Bye.